In Yiddish, they're called BLINTZES. In Russian, they're called blini. In Czech, they're called pancakes. And in Polish, they're called naleśniki. And that is what I'm going to show you how to make today. Back in about 2002 or 2003, I started keeping a handwritten recipe book in which I would record just the best recipes taught to me by people whose food I absolutely loved. And when they made something that I thought, I'm going to make this for the rest of my life, I would put it in here. So from 2009, there is a recipe for naleśniki. Naleśniki are Polish crepes. It's a very thin pancake, and they're filled, when they're savory, they can be filled with ground meat or mushrooms. But the naleśniki that I know are filled with this beautiful farmer's cheese, and they're eaten with blueberries or some kind of berry coulis. I learned how to make these from the housekeeper of my friend Eve. Eve is Polish. Her housekeeper, Ula, short for Ursula, made these every week for the family, and they are delicious. So one summer, July 2009, I even recorded it here in Rhode Island. I asked Ursula, please show me how to make these. I stood, I watched her, I wrote everything down, and I've been making them ever since. Ursula now lives back in Poland, and when I visit Eve, as a sort of sentimental gift, I make the naleśniki just like Ula makes them, and Eve will say, you made these perfectly. So the thing about these naleśniki is that they need to be made delicately and thinly, and for that you need a really good pan where the crepes won't stick. That's one of the reasons why I don't make them regularly here in my apartment until now, because I didn't have a non-stick pan. It's something that I have avoided for years, the association with these black coated Teflon or Teflon type pans, and all the negative health associations with those pans have kept me from engaging in nonstick cookware until I discovered Caraway. Caraway is a very high quality, non-toxic cookware brand that produces not only pots and pans, but storage, and everything they make is made from metal, ceramic, glass, and wood. These pans are fantastic. They're so durable and well made. The pans are ceramic coated on the inside, which is naturally non-stick. The handles and the base are stainless steel, and when you order the pots and pans, especially the set with the lids, they come with a great storage setup so that you can just slide the pans into these holders and put these into your cupboards. There's even a little slot here for the lid. I can't say enough good things about this company. I love, love, love their stuff, and because it's non-stick, I can now make naleśniki in my apartment. So the naleśniki are composed of two things, the crepe and the filling. For the naleśniki batter, you can make this in a liquidizer, like a blender. That's how Ula did it. She would put everything in there and then just blend it all together. I don't have one of those. You can do it completely by hand with a whisk, but really you want all the flour to be fully incorporated so there aren't little blobs of flour in the dough, in the batter. So what I do is I put everything into a bowl, and then I use my immersion blender, which I love, to blend it all together. So I put the liquid ingredients in first. You need half a cup of water, a half a cup of milk. I don't really measure. 4 eggs. I used to have chickens when I was like 12, and I had these South American chickens called Aracanas, which would lay blue and green eggs. And when I saw these at the grocery store, I just had to have them because they reminded me of my wonderful childhood keeping chickens. I miss my little chickens. So half a cup of water, half a cup of milk, 4 eggs, 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, 1/4 cup of sugar. And you don't have to put in a 1/4 cup. I put in a little less. As I said, I don't really measure. The recipe, Ula's recipe, is a 1/4 cup of sugar. I put in like 1/8. A pinch of salt. And a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, so that'll, and so I'm gonna blend that together first. This is what I do. You see this ugly thing here? I don't like looking at that, so I keep my cutting board in front of it, and then when I have to use it, I push it aside. Okay, so this gets... Now, to this, I add 1 cup of flour. Just all-purpose flour. And you want to make sure that all of the flour is fully incorporated. So just check, like I take a spatula and just... There. That's done. The great thing about this batter is it's pretty forgiving. You want it to be thick enough that it's going to hold together in the pan and form the crepe, but it shouldn't be so thick that you can't get it thin as a thin crepe. So it needs to be fairly runny, and if it's thick while you're making the naleśniki, you can always add some water or milk to thin it down. So I make the batter like this. This looks like a good consistency, but as I'm making the naleśniki, if it's too thick, I'd add a bit of milk. That looks perfect though. Now, this batter should be chilled for a couple of hours. So I'm going to cover this and put it in the fridge for a couple hours. So I have some batter prepared from earlier. I put this in the fridge, and now like I'm looking at this and it does actually look thicker than the batter that I just made. So I'm going to thin this down. This looks a little too thick for how I make naleśniki, and I'll thin this with just a little bit of water. You can always add liquid, you can't take it away, so better to do this gradually and incrementally. Okay, that looks good. There, it's nice and smooth. I don't see any bits of flour. There. So that's ready to make into our thin pancakes. I have a little bit of butter on a piece of paper towel, which I'm going to use to grease the pan. My pan heats up. These pans heat up for just a minute before you add any grease. And you always want to cook on low to medium heat with these pans because they're ceramic coated. They really hold the heat wonderfully. So once the pan is heated up, I have a little butter on a paper towel, and I just coat the pan with that tiny bit of butter. I put in my batter, and then in a nice fluid motion, this is the sort of the art of making the naleśniki, is making them very thin but even. And this is what Ula did so expertly when she made these every week. And it's taken me years to get there, but I can now do it like Ula. Now, to remove the naleśniki from the pan, you just I'm using wood. You can use wood or silicone on these pans, but don't ever use metal or something that can scratch the surface. And then I actually just go like this. Here's one. Keep going. Okay. Next. A thin crepe like this is something that is eaten across the world in almost every culture. Every culture has their version of this. In India and Sri Lanka, they make something called dosa or tosa. And my mom actually made two types of dosa. She made a dosa with white flour, which was like this. But she also made dosa with lentils and rice mixed together and fermented into a batter. The batter was fermented. And then, like, thin rice pancakes are made in Vietnam, and they're so nice. Look at that. They're just lovely. So it's a bit of a dance because you don't have a lot of working time. So I pour the batter and I do my rotation simultaneously while the batter is actually cooking. These pans are so nice. They're heavy and they just feel so durable. The owner of this company years ago got sick from using a non-stick Teflon-ish pan, and that's what prompted the owner to develop this line of cookware. And when they arrived, they're so, I mean, this is a tiny detail, but it really impressed me. Everything is so beautifully packaged. Like even the cardboard box that everything came in was so beautifully organized and packed so nicely. And the attention to detail was really impressive. Eve's housekeeper, Ursula, who worked for them for like 20 years before she moved back to Poland, it's because of her that I know how to do the Polish accent so well. I studied it every time I would be around her. Once when she was showing me how to make something, it might have been the Naleśniki, or maybe it was, so she showed me how to make a few things. Potato pancake, that's what it was. When she was showing me how to make Mr. Charles's potato pancake, she said, "Rajivski, you not have girlfriend? You live here in New York for so long, you not have girlfriend?" And Alexandra, Eve's daughter, she was standing next to me, and she and I sort of exchanged a glance and we smiled. And I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna, I said, "Ula, I like boys." "Oh, I didn't know this about you. That's nice." I learned some Polish phrases from Ula. When she would talk to Eve, she always called her Pani Ewa, Miss Eve. And Eve would ask her to do something, or give her some instructions about something, and Ula would go, "Nie ma problemu, Pani Ewa, nie ma problemu." So I learned, that was the first thing I learned in Polish. Nie ma problemu. No problem. Nie ma problemu. And then I learned a bunch of other things. Like if someone's saying something ridiculous and it's like, what is this nonsense? Jak tak można? Oh, BLINTZES, Naleśniki can only be eaten with farmer's cheese. Jak tak można? You can have them with potato or meat filling. Sometimes I've made the naleśniki and they've been a little sketchy, like when I really don't measure and I'm really winging it, especially when I'm like in different people's houses and I'm using whatever pans they have. But I really have to say, and this is the truth, they are the best in this pan. These look incredible. Like, look at the delicate surface of, there's like a very slight sort of pocking all over the surface of the naleśniki. They're perfect. It really comes down to the batter, the consistency of the batter, and the pan. Because you can have a great batter, but if it starts sticking to the pan or it's cooking unevenly, they're not going to, like, you ruin them when you try to remove them from the pan. And that really is why I have not made naleśniki in this apartment very often. Okay, the last one. So that's the end of the batter. My last naleśniki. In Tamil, I would say there's naleśniki and then there's kuradeshniki. That's going to be an inside joke for anyone that speaks Tamil. Naleśniki, kuradeshniki. I say that to myself when I'm here alone making these, and I'm laughing like a crazy person to myself because I come up with these jokes and I have no one to share them with. Lonely, I'm Mr. Lonely, I have nobody for myself. Done. Turn the pan off. Don't wash it while it's still hot because it'll shock the pan. Let it cool down before you wash it. I hand wash these pans to take nice care of them. And now the naleśniki have to cool, but while these are cooling, I'm going to make the wonderful, delicious filling. Now, for the filling of the naleśniki, I'm going to use farmer's cheese, which is what Ulla used to use. Farmer's cheese you can't find everywhere. Like, I can get it here in New York, but when I'm in Rhode Island, actually, none of the grocery stores out there have farmer's cheese. So an alternative to farmer's cheese, which is excellent, actually, I like it equally, truly, just as much as farmer's cheese. I like to use small curd cottage cheese. Small curd cottage cheese tastes fantastic in the naleśniki. And when I put all of this together, I actually blend it with the immersion blender again. So even if it's cottage cheese, once it's blended, you don't really know what it is. I have the cheese in here. I need 1 egg yolk. Okay, 1 egg yolk. Lemon zest. I've washed my lemon and dried it. And not a lot of this. I would say maybe half a teaspoon of lemon zest. When you're zesting a lemon, you just use the yellow part. You don't want to go into the white because that part's bitter. Okay, that's good. Honey, about 4 tablespoons of honey. So you just need about a tablespoon of lemon juice. Just a tablespoon of lemon juice. It's amazing how that little bit of lemon juice helps to liquefy that cheese. This gets mixed around just slightly. my lovely filling for the naleśniki. The naleśniki have cooled, and I'm going to show you how I assemble them. So this is how I fill the naleśniki. Start with one on a plate, about 2 tablespoons of filling, the cheese. This gets spread around to sort of 3/4 of the circle, with leaving one area a little blank, so to speak. One side gets folded in, the other side gets folded in, this gets folded over, and then this gets rolled like this. And because this part is sort of blank, it creates a very nice, perfect seal. That's what the naleśniki should look like. And then this gets put onto a platter, or, as Ula would do, into a storage container that would go into the fridge. So Ula would make like 30 of these for the family for the week. She would assemble them and then place them directly into a storage container with a lid, and they would keep in the fridge all week, and Eve would eat a few every morning. So that's what I do. Filling goes on. Now the art of this, you are an expert, masterful naleśniki maker if by the time you get to your last naleśniki, you get to the last bit of filling. If it's perfectly aligned, where there's nothing remaining from either, you really knew how to gauge and how much to put into each naleśniki. That happens to me maybe once every 10 tries. So it's only happened a few times over the years. They're so beautiful. Look at that. It makes me so satisfied to see them on the platter, like assembled. These should be, like, when these are made well, they are delicate. They're not heavy and thick. When the batter, and this is what Eve has pointed out, when the batter and the actual pancakes are thick, the whole thing feels kind of heavy. You know, some other Polish things. A tongue twister that Ciocia Monika taught me, Eve's cousin. The tongue twister is change brzmi wytyczenie. Change brzmi wytyczenie. A bug hides in the grass. Now, okay, let me show you something. If you make a little boo-boo, like here I lifted the naleśniki and it ripped, be strategic about this. So this is what I've learned over the years of making naleśniki. I put this on the side over here. I don't put the filling on the teared part, the torn part. Teared. Can't even speak English anymore. I'm speaking too much Polish. And look, I'm just gonna fold this in and hide it. You can hide your mistakes if you're strategic. So the good part is what I'm leaving for the very end of my roll. And now I've just hidden the boo-boo. Look at that. No one would ever know that there was a torn bit in there. Look how nice those look. It's a work of art. This beautiful ironstone platter with naleśniki on them. I think any Polish mamush would be very to have Rajivski in the kitchen making the naleśniki. They would never know. At a Polish wedding, if all the Poles were having their wonderful naleśniki and then they opened the kitchen door and I was in the kitchen, they would never expect a Tamil to be making the naleśniki. However, I should say, and this is not a joke, all over the world, you would be shocked at how many Tamils are in the kitchen cooking. When I lived in Munich, I thought I was the only Tamil person in Munich. And one of my favorite restaurants was a Wirtshaus, a beer hall called Wirtshaus in der Au. When my cousin visited me, Brinda, I took her to Wirtshaus in der Au, and we were shocked when the kitchen door opened. There was a Tamil man, and he looked at both of us and went, and we just burst out laughing. The schnitzel, the knödel, the knackwurst was all being made by a Tamil man, of course. So I guess this is carrying on the great tradition. There. So, those are the naleśniki. Now, they can be eaten exactly like this. You can put these on a plate and add the topping, which I'm going to show you, and you can eat them like this. You can keep them in the fridge, warm them up in the microwave, and have them that way. But I'm going to show you what I like to do, which is another way that naleśniki are eaten. I'm going to use my little mini Caraway frying pan. I love the mini pans. Are great for like a single egg or 2 eggs when it's just little old me eating. Okay, a little bit of butter in the small fry pan. Now you can take the naleśniki and put them in here. So just say they came out of the fridge. This is how I personally like to reheat them. Or if you've just made them, to give them a little crispy outer crust. They get lightly fried. Okay, another occasion when the non-stick pan is really perfect for these naleśniki is this part, because I have tried this in other pans before and they very often will stick, just because that dough is so delicate. There. Look how nice that looks. So that's good. Now I'm going to plate them. Okay. 1. I think I'll just start with 2. 2. Now, what I like to eat this with is just a blueberry sauce that I've made by boiling blueberries, a couple tablespoons of sugar, and a bit of lemon juice. Bring it to a boil, let it simmer for about 10 minutes, and then turn off the heat, and it'll thicken up like this. Very simple and easy to make, and so delicious on the naleśniki. So I just put those on top. My mouth is watering. And then I can just gobble up the whole plate so quickly. This really is part of my routine breakfast rotation. Every now and then I have a craving and I'll make a bunch and put them in the fridge and have a couple every morning. There you have it, how to make naleśniki, brought to you by Caraway. This is a fantastic brand. Their stuff is so well made, so high quality. Check out the promo code in the description of this video that will take you right to their website. Thank you for watching. To all my Polish viewers, dziękuję. Dziękuję bardzo. Goodbye. Cornerstone of Polish, Eastern European. There's a dog. There's a dog having a nice little bit of water. What do you want? Oh, do you want naleśniki? You can't have any naleśniki. Can't. Not for you. It's for me. It's all for me. Well, let's do this again. A bite.